students were shaped. You look at India as a problem. Its population is a problem. Its history is a problem. Its religion is a problem. Its caste is a problem. You are a problem. You know, it took 20 years for the Madras University to change the title of the subject into Indian economic development. Have you come across any education system which will make the people feel the country is a problem? But this is how we shaped our intellectuals, our academics, our policymakers, our media people. And I will tell you what exactly happened in the course of experience which completely transformed my ideas, paradigm shifted me from 1990s when liberalization, globalization came like a tsunami and swept this country. I have a fair amount of experience as a corporate advisor, as someone who has been interested in economics. Only because of my economic conditions as a family, I could not study economics. Otherwise, I was deeply interested in economics. I had to take the chartered accountancy course to saturate the economic condition of my family. That is why I became a chartered accountant. It was not out of choice, it was a compulsion. But economics was my thrust area, where I had longing for knowledge. So I have always been studying economics, cross-cultural study of economics, global economics. This has always been my passion. So in 1990-91, when the liberalization, globalization movement came like a tsunami, and the whole country had got onto the globalization paradigm, the escalator, without knowing what it is. I had the opportunity of discussing with some of the top industrial groups in India, many of whom I advise, and some of them my friends. They had no clue as to how to go about in that situation, completely flabbergasted. The policymakers began telling them that global scales are different, that kind of capital, that kind of scaling up of the business, that kind of large-scale industrial enterprise, you can never set up. You can't think in terms of 1 million steel. You have to produce 20 million steel. Where will you ramp up your production? You can't think in terms of producing 8,000 cars. You have to produce 8 million cars. Can you do it? You can't operate on 1 crore, 200 crore capital. You need 20,000 crore capital. So nothing is possible. You all sell your enterprises to the foreigners and better get into trading. We are known to be traders anyway for the last 300 years. This was the advice given by a person who was the Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs at that time. I don't want to name and shame that person. The entire India was shaken. But one thing I tell you, the government has never guided the people of India. I am going to reveal to you the secret of this society's functioning. How I came to know about it. It's a unique way of gathering knowledge, for which I had only one example. Though they were such great people, they can inspire an ordinary man like me also. When Mahatma Gandhi came to India, he met our Gokhale, Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Gokhale told him, you have been so long away from India, you must know what India is today. You take a travel across the country for 1 year. Never speak any one word yourself. Never give any comment. You just listen to people, see the people, gather empirical knowledge of the people, then that will give you an understanding about what you should be doing. That's what Gandhi did. Taking cue from that, I began traveling across the country, suspended my profession for 3 years. Ludhiana, Batala, Rajkot, Jamnagar, Morbi, right down to Thoothukudi, I visited about 42 industrial clusters, where I found people are becoming entrepreneurs, setting up very powerful businesses without any government help, no infrastructure, no roads, no airports, nothing. When I went to Ludhiana, it was a revealing experience for me. Ludhiana is a center which exports cycle spare parts to all the multinational companies in the cycle manufacturing companies in the world. It is because of the technical expertise of a community known as Ram Gadiyas. I don't know whether any of you are from Punjab. It is their expertise. No engineering college, no university. I went to Rajkot. And in these places, no one knows a word of English. In Ludhiana, you can't speak English. Nobody understands. The working people who are entrepreneurs. I am talking about the entrepreneurs. I am not talking about managers and clerks and chartered accountants and lawyers employed by them. Then I went to Rajkot. Rajkot is a desert. In the desert, there is a blooming prosperity. Rajkot Industrial Association's president, with whom I was carrying on a 7-hour debate. He didn't understand one word of English. I couldn't understand one word of Gujarati. We had an interpreter. He said, in the year 1955, a Patel, a blacksmith, imported a diesel engine, and he, by reverse engineering, found that he could manufacture it here. And that became the process. And at that time, when I was in Rajkot in the year 1994, there were 2,000 ancillary units, 55 assembling units. They were supplying diesel engine spare parts to multinational companies, exporting diesel engines. They were employing chartered accountants, they were employing MBAs, they were employing engineers. Revelation for me. My entire idea about Indian economics model, what is the entrepreneurship, what is the role of educational institutions, it began to get it cleared. You are all educated people. Which is the place with the highest per capita income in India? Can anyone in this audience say? Huh? One place. No, don't guess. If you know, say. I will tell you which is not the place. It's not Delhi, it's not Bombay, it's not Calcutta, it's not Bangalore, it's not Hyderabad. It is a place called Morbi in Gujarat. It has been devastated by dam burst in the year 1965. Again devastated by earthquake in 2001. That is the place with the highest per capita income in India. And nowhere in the world 55% of the population is employed. Out of the total population of 2.5 lakhs, almost 1.4 lakhs is working population. They have 1,000 diamond cutting units, 1,000 textile units, and they manufacture the Ajanta wall clock. Not educated. Right down to Thoothukudi. I was in Tirupur. Tirupur is a place which is posting an export turnover of $4 billion in knitwear, bunions, and t-shirts. There is a study done by Boston University about how in this place, which is unknown, which is not even in the map of India, people have begun exporting, and it is now known as the knitwear hub of the world. It is 50 kilometers off Coimbatore, and you have only a two-lane road. And the Boston University study revealed 67% of the people who run the export business there, about 300 exporting units, are educated less than 10th standard. Only 7% are graduates. When I went and traveled across the country, I found that there is enormous entrepreneurial talent in India which has nothing to do with the educational institutions of India. I also addressed IIT. I asked the IIT students, they assembled in a large hall like this. I asked them, what are you going to do? Out of 500, I have not even come across 5 saying I will do my business. How does India produce such a huge entrepreneurial base? This is what I teach in IIT. Entrepreneurship has nothing to do with the textbooks. It has nothing to do with blackboard. In fact, it may be a denial of this which makes a person entrepreneur. I made a presentation to the Prime Minister of India after he assumed office. From 1991 to 2013, what is the amount of employment generated by the formal sector, which is the public sector and private sector corporates? In this period, what is the amount of foreign investment that had come into this corporate sector? What is the amount of bank money that had gone into it? And what is the amount of employment they have generated? You will be stunned that in this 22 years period, 1991 to 2013, the public sector and private sector corporate together added only 1.2 million employment. Just 1.2 million. When I told this to Narayan Murthy, he told me, Guru, software sector itself has added 3.5 million employment in this period. That means the others have cut the employment by 2.3 million. $550 billion was the foreign investment that had come into the corporate sector, public and private, in this period. 19 lakh crores is the bank advances that have gone into this sector. It had produced very highly earning people, a prosperous company, advertising, and it captures the imagination of the people, whether it is Times of India or Economic Times or Business Standard or Financial Express. They only talk about this and about the stock market, with which India has nothing to do. And I will tell you what is the amount of Indian money that gets into the stock market. You know, Indian savings has been going up. Savings to GDP ratio was 22% in the year 1991. It went up to 38% in 2009. Here I will tell you something. You have invited me to talk about economics. In the year 1993, when Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati came to India at the instance of Dr. Manmohan Singh, Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati is known as the god of free trade. He is the one who conceptualized the WTO, structured it, and he was called the god of free trade. And Alan Greenspan, who was the Federal Reserve Chairman, he was called the god of money. So these two gods directed the world for almost a couple of decades. So when Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati had come here, Dr. Manmohan Singh asked him, we are in an economic mess, please tell us how to come out of it. What I am going to tell you is the crux of what can result in a disaster. He gave a 72-page paper, which was put on the website of the Finance Ministry. In that he said, the Indian families save 19% of their income, which is the family share of savings to GDP ratio was 19%. And others only 3 to 4% at that time. It added up to 23%. The family share was almost 85 to 90%. Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati said, this is where the problem is. The family savings should be brought down to 9 or 10%. The balance 9 or 10% should be converted into expenditure. That will mean buying, that will mean supply, that will mean production, that will mean employment. Once you make the Indian families spend, there will be no problem. The Indian economic problem will be solved. But he said there is a problem. The problem are the Indian women. They are so stingy. They are so responsible. They are responsible to their children. They are responsible to their in-laws. They are responsible to their husband. And they restrict the expenditure. And so unless you make the Indian women consumers and make them spend, this is not going to happen. The man has, from economics, he has moved to sociology, culture. And he said, how to make the Indian women spend? He said, your goods are so useless. You bring down the tariff, bring goods from abroad, build malls. You must compel them to spend. You must make them, that impulse to spend must be compelled into them. This is what he said. And the government of India began doing it. And the media was very happy. It was getting advertisements and there were huge songs in the television. And the Indian women sang the songs but did not buy the goods. It is proved by the fact that the Indian family savings went up from 19% in the year 1992 to 27% in the year 2009. And Dr. Jagdish Bhagavati was asked, if you spend your money, if you don't have savings, where will you get capital for investment? That you don't worry. Foreigners will come and invest. It is your duty to spend. It is their duty to invest. Such blatantly atrocious economic theory was hawked as liberalization and globalization. And the Indian people, how they handled it, Indian business, how they handled it, how the government handled it, there has to be a huge research done on this. I will immediately go to, because it's a huge topic, I teach for 21 hours in the IIT in a year. And if I have to tell this in 1 hour, you can understand how incoherent I will be. See, there is in 2008, the Economic Survey came out with the per capita income, per capita expenditure. This is the state of economy in the 2008 Economic Survey. They have tabulated from 1981 to 2007. This covers half of the controlled socialist economy and half is the liberalized economy. One thing the Economic Survey finds is that the average growth of consumption is slower than the average growth of income, primarily because of rising savings rates. Year-to-year change in consumption also suggests the rise in the consumption is more gradual and steady process. Sharp changes in the income tend to get adjusted in the savings rates. If the income grows slowly, the expenditure grows even slower. The savings moves up. It is a 30-year average. The people's behavior has not changed. Culture has not changed. Family values have not changed, despite all that you see. So I said at the time in 1993-94 that this man is preaching something. He wants to Americanize India. It will not happen. And so somebody went and told him, Mr. Bhagavati, you say this. Mr. Gurumurthy says this. What is your answer? He said, is Gurumurthy an economist? If he is an economist, you can call me a Bharatanatyam dancer. This is there on the net. You Google Bharatanatyam dancer, Gurumurthy, Bhagavati, you will get these news reports. That was the extent of arrogance that these economists exhibited. They had conquered the world. They had conquered politics. They had conquered business. They had conquered the media. And I will tell you what happens to the economists in the year 2009. You know the meltdown that took place in the year 2008. The whole world came crashing. It is because of one country. It overborrowed. Why it overborrowed? America was seen as the greatest country in education, in science, in legal systems, in everything. How did they crash? And a country which became the model for the entire world, and including us even today, without discrimination, without inquiry, without audit, without verification, we simply adopt. Some people are icons and begin following. America is one such country which every country followed. It simply happened like this. It happened because of cultural reasons which transformed to sociological disaster, which ultimately resulted in economic disaster. In the year 1960, the total American savings, 80% consisted of family savings in 1960. In 2006 third quarter, family savings was 20% minus of family savings, and corporate savings became 120% of national savings. All the monies were transferred from families to corporates through the medium of credit card. 30 crore Americans, of whom only 23 crore are economically operative people, use 120 crore credit cards, on which they owe a debt of $3.5 trillion. Their housing mortgage debt is $10 trillion. These two add up to nearly $14 trillion, and their GDP is $18 trillion. And these debts were not funded by American savings because there was no savings. These were bundled and sold. All the mortgages were converted into what is known as CDOs, consolidated debt obligations, and sold to different banks in the world. When the Americans defaulted in paying, the CDOs got defaulted, and the entire instability in American economy became global financial meltdown. And the entire the field of economists, the guild of economists was so shaken, they had no answer. The Economist magazine came out with a cover page article like this: Modern Economic Theory Collapsing. And they said what kind of place the economists occupied in the polity, public life, intellectualism, and what has happened to them. I will read out 2 paragraphs and then go to what I feel is India. Of all economic problems that have been pricked, of all the economic bubbles that have been pricked, few have burst more spectacularly than the reputation of economics itself. It is not economic crisis, it is economics in crisis. So all our economists must understand there is no functioning economic theory today. 2 years back, there was a debate in Chennai. There were 4 very well recognized economists on the one side, and I was there. Of course, I had been